Hey all, Alex from Music Hub here, and today we'll be doing a review of the collection of short stories and essays published between 1819 and 1820 by Washington Irving, the sketchbook of Geoffrey Crayon, Gentleman. Washington Irving, born the 3rd of April 1783 in New York City, died the 28th of November 1859 in Tarrytown. Despite growing up among merchants and studying law as a career path, Irving was a storyteller by nature, and his 1809 satirical work, A History of New York, was a massive success in the state. Among other things, it introduces the character of Deirdre Knickerbocker, a fictional historian who became a state symbol to the point that the name of Knickerbocker still lives on in the city's basketball team in abbreviated form, the New York Knicks. Irving traveled to England in 1815, and during his almost 2 decades in Europe, he helped legitimize American writing, especially the form of the short story, which he helped make an independent genre from the fairy tales that German writers like the Brothers Grimm were popularizing. The sketchbook of Geoffrey Crayon was one of Irving's first projects in Europe, and as it turns out, it has remained his most enduring collection of writings. It's sort of written from Irving's personal perspective, but under the pseudonym Geoffrey Crayon. Crayon moves to England from the United States and essentially uses the collection to write essays on his observations in England and how they've granted him perspective compared to American life, and vice versa. But also, Crayon makes sure to share some stories that he heard during his travels, including a couple that were allegedly found in the papers of Deirdre Knickerbocker. So it's a potpourri of different ideas and tales that get thrown in here, and the reader gets to parse through everything. The biggest barrier to the sketchbook for most people is the essays and the monologues about England and Crayon's travels, but honestly, I don't mind them. I think they serve a pretty imperative part to the whole narrative, such as it is. They set scenes and contextualize how Irving and his character are stumbling upon these stories. They're not being presented in a vacuum. They're being told in bars, at parties, in other sorts of social settings, and I think that context is important to be aware of when reading these stories. But about the stories, there are some real gems here. The art of bookmaking is a genuinely hilarious satire in which the act of writing is compared to the art of cooking, combining ingredients from other authors and other works to make their own unique brew. The Widow and Her Son is a moving piece about Crayon witnessing a poor older woman attending a funeral service for her son, which makes Crayon reflect on how grief affects people differently and how her suffering is enhanced because her age and poverty leave her with less support to fall back on. It's really sobering and stands out, especially given how lightweight a lot of the other stories in this collection are. The most famous stories here are the 2 Knickerbocker tales, though. Rip Van Winkle is pretty clearly Irving's version of a Grimm's fairy tale, and it fits pretty snugly into that canon, so it's understandable why it's become a popular children's story over the years. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, however, is on another level entirely. It's Irving's magnum opus, and I'm not sure it's particularly close. I think the language he uses is fantastic. The descriptions of the town, the main character, Ichabod Crane, they're descriptive to the point of hilarity, especially when it comes to Ichabod and the comparisons to him looking like a scarecrow that's just walked straight out of a cornfield. The climax of the book and Ichabod's encounter with the headless horseman is a fantastic bit of suspense and uncertainty, especially with the ending having no conclusive resolution to speak of. It's very open-ended. You've probably read this story already. I know I had to read it myself some years back for school-related reasons, but if you haven't, get on it. I could probably do a whole review on this story alone. I probably won't do one anytime soon, but potentially down the line, I could see myself doing it. It's terrific. And that's it. I think there is a lot of excellent material in here, but if you're not wanting to read the whole collection, I think Sleepy Hollow and the other tales I mentioned are more than worth your time, and I think you can appreciate them outside of the context, even if I do think that context does help to some extent. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. As always, more reviews are to come. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time right here on Music Hub.